The moment Rasheeda stepped into the Frost Bistro that morning, she felt it, an energy so heavy it hung in the air like thunder about to break. Kirk was already there, sitting at a table in the corner, head down, fingers trembling as he spun his wedding ring in slow, agonizing circles. He didn't look up when she approached. He didn't smile. He didn't even breathe right. And before Rasheeda could speak, before she could ask why he'd called her there with a message that simply said, "We need to talk," he slid a folded envelope across the table, one that instantly made her stomach drop. Meanwhile, miles across Atlanta, Jasmine Washington stood in the bathroom of her friend's apartment, staring at a pregnancy test that refused to blink away the second line. Her hands shook, her heart pounded. Her past came crashing back like a curse she thought she'd erased. And when her phone buzzed with Kirk's name lighting up the screen at the exact same moment, Rasheeda whispered, "Kirk, what have you done?" The truth hit harder than any scandal Atlanta had ever seen. Kirk Frost wasn't just hiding something. He was about to break the one person he swore he'd never hurt again. Long before Rasheeda found herself staring at that envelope in the Frost Bistro, long before Jasmine Washington watched a second pink line tilt her entire world sideways again, the truth is, this storm had been building for years, quietly, silently, like pressure forming under concrete until one crack shatters everything. Kirk Frost had spent a lifetime walking a tightrope between loyalty and temptation, between marriage and ego, between the man he told the world he was and the man he feared he might actually be. After the first scandal with Jasmine, after the DNA test, after the therapy sessions and public apologies, Kirk promised Rasheeda it would never happen again. And Rasheeda believed him, not because she was naive, but because she loved him with the kind of loyalty that demanded belief even when the world told her to run. She rebuilt her trust in pieces, brick by brick, even when her heart still carried fractures from the betrayal. But Kirk never rebuilt himself the same way. He patched his guilt with silence, routine, and avoidance. He treated their marriage like a wound that would heal on its own if no one touched it too deeply. Meanwhile, Jasmine tried her best to disappear. Atlanta treated her like a villain after the first scandal. But behind closed doors, she was just a woman trying to survive the fallout of choices her younger self made without guidance or protection. She focused on raising her child, staying out of the spotlight, and rebuilding a life that wasn't tied to Kirk's decisions. But pain has a way of echoing. And Jasmine carried a guilt she never fully spoke about. The guilt of loving a man who belonged to someone else. The guilt of being dragged on national television. The guilt of watching her son grow up between court orders instead of a father's arms. She told herself she was done with Kirk. She told herself the chapter was closed. She told herself she would never let history repeat itself. But hearts don't close chapters. People do. And Jasmine never got closure, not really. The last time she saw Kirk before this new storm, he was polite but distant, acting like their history was a rumor he'd heard once and forgotten. It hurt, but she accepted it. She tried to move on. She almost succeeded. Almost. Meanwhile, Rasheeda felt a shift in her marriage months before the envelope. It was subtle at first, Kirk getting home a little later, conversations ending a little quicker, his eyes dimming when she mentioned their future or asked him how he'd really been feeling. He brushed it off as stress, business, pressure. She believed him, but her intuition tugged at her ribs like a warning she didn't want to face. Then came the late-night phone calls he stepped outside to answer, the half smiles, the distance, the way he flinched when she mentioned Jasmine's name, even though she hadn't spoken to Jasmine in years. Rasheeda wasn't stupid. She just wasn't ready to be right. And somewhere in the middle of all that confusion, Jasmine's life unraveled quietly. She missed her period. She shrugged it off. Stress, she told herself. Just stress. But the symptoms didn't stop. They grew. And when she finally took the test, the world seemed to tilt under her feet. 2 lines, 2. She sat on the bathroom floor, staring, shaking, terrified. Not because she wasn't ready for another child, but because she knew exactly who the father might be. And that realization broke her. She hadn't planned it. She hadn't trapped him. She hadn't even spoken to him regularly. But one moment of old emotions, old fire, old comfort, one night they both swore they wouldn't talk about, changed everything. Jasmine didn't want to destroy Rasheeda's life again. She didn't want to wake up the beast of the past. She didn't want to be the scandal. But life didn't care what she wanted. And Kirk? Well, Kirk started noticing Jasmine's silence, her avoidance, her anxiety spilling through her voice when he finally called her just to check in. He put the pieces together faster than she expected. And the moment he realized what that second pink line might mean, fear swallowed him whole. Because this time, he knew Rasheeda wouldn't survive another betrayal. And this time, he wasn't sure he would either. Which is why he called Rasheeda to that table. Why he came early, sitting there tapping his ring like it was a countdown. Why Jasmine stared at her test like it was a curse. Why everything was about to explode again. Because Kirk Frost wasn't just facing another mistake. He was facing the truth he tried to outrun. And Jasmine Washington might be carrying his child. Again. The moment Rasheeda slid into the seat across from Kirk, she felt an ache in her stomach that warned her this wasn't going to be another one of his harmless, forgettable, "we need to talk" speeches. This one carried a vibration, a tension, a heaviness that made the air between them feel too thick to breathe through. Kirk looked like a man standing in the center of a battlefield, holding a secret that could detonate at any second. His fingers fumbled with the wedding ring he'd worn through every scandal, every argument, every vow renewed on screen and off. Rasheeda waited, her arms crossed, her patience thin, but her intuition raging, whispering to her that this moment was about to carve a crack through their marriage deeper than anything before. Kirk swallowed, opened his mouth, and then closed it again like the words were burning his tongue. "Rasheeda," he finally managed, voice trembling. "I messed up." Her heart didn't drop. It snapped. Not because she didn't expect those words, but because she had heard them too many times, had forgiven them too many times, had rebuilt her heart too many times to want to hear them again. "What do you mean?" she asked quietly, her voice calm but her spirit shaking. Kirk pushed the envelope toward her like it was a confession written in ink. "Everything's inside." Rasheeda didn't touch it at first. Her eyes stayed glued to his face, studying the panic, the guilt, the fear. "Kirk, what did you do?" she whispered. He looked away, unable to meet her gaze, and that told her everything she needed to know. The past wasn't just circling back, it was about to walk straight into their lives again. Meanwhile, across the city, Jasmine Washington was pacing her friend's apartment in small, frantic circles, the positive pregnancy test still lying on the sink like a threat. She pressed her hands to her chest, trying to breathe through the panic crashing through her body. She had promised herself, that she would never get entangled with Kirk again. The last time had nearly destroyed her. The public shaming, the backlash, the messages, the accusations, the judgment from strangers who didn't even know her story. And after all that, she had sworn she would never let him near enough to hurt her again. But one night, one weak, emotional, messy night, had undone years of distance. It wasn't planned. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even intentional. It was two people drowning in old feelings and terrible timing. And now the consequence was sitting in her body, growing, demanding answers. When the phone buzzed with Kirk's name, Jasmine's heart nearly flew out of her chest. She didn't pick up, she couldn't, but she watched it ring, watched it buzz again and again and again until she finally let it go to voicemail. She expected nothing but panic, and that's exactly what she heard when she replayed the message. Kirk's voice was frantic, shaky, almost desperate. "Jasmine, call me back. Please, we gotta talk. This can't be happening again." Jasmine covered her mouth as tears spilled out because he wasn't wrong. Back at the Frost Bistro, Rasheeda finally opened the envelope with hands that trembled despite her determination to stay strong. Inside were printed screenshots, timestamps, call logs, and at the bottom, a single sheet of paper with words that made her vision blur. A bank notification, a recent transfer from Kirk to Jasmine. Rasheeda blinked hard. "Why are you sending her money again, Kirk?" she asked, voice deadly quiet. Kirk's eyes fell shut. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" she shot back. "Because the last time this happened—" "I know," he whispered. "I know what it looks like." Rasheeda leaned forward, eyes burning. "Why are you paying her now?" Kirk's throat bobbed as he swallowed. "Because she said she needed help." "For what?" The silence that followed wasn't just uncomfortable, it was fatal. Rasheeda's hands froze midair. Her breath stopped. Her heart paused between beats. "Kirk," she whispered, "is Jasmine pregnant?" Kirk's eyes filled with a fear she had never seen before, not even during the first scandal. "I don't know," he whispered. "But she said she might be." Rasheeda jerked back as if slapped. "Might be?" she repeated softly, painfully. "And you think it's yours?" Kirk dragged his hands down his face, shaking uncontrollably. "I don't know, Rasheeda. I don't know. But she said we needed to talk before she tells anyone else." Rasheeda's entire world tilted sideways. "You cheated again?" Kirk didn't answer. That was the answer. Rasheeda shot up from her seat so fast the chair behind her scraped the floor. Her vision blurred with rage, heartbreak, humiliation. "After everything? After years of rebuilding? After all the pain I forgave?" Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't wipe them. She didn't care. "You have the nerve to sit here and tell me Jasmine Washington might be pregnant again?" Kirk tried to reach for her, but Rasheeda stepped back. She wasn't ready for his hands. She wasn't ready for his explanations. She wasn't ready for anything but truth. "I swear," he choked out. "I didn't mean for—" "Stop!" she screamed. "You never mean it, Kirk, but you always do it." At that exact moment, Kirk's phone buzzed on the table. Rasheeda and Kirk both froze when the name lit up the screen. Jasmine. And then, worse, another notification arrived immediately behind it. "We need to talk. I took another test." Rasheeda's knees weakened. Kirk's world collapsed. And Jasmine was about to reveal the truth neither of them were ready for. The second Rasheeda saw Jasmine's name flash across Kirk's phone, the entire restaurant seemed to shrink around her, the walls pressing in as if the universe itself wanted her to confront the one truth she had spent years praying she'd never face again. Kirk stared at the phone like it was a grenade counting down in his hand, and before he could silence it, Rasheeda snatched it off the table with trembling fingers. The message preview was still glowing. "I took another test." Rasheeda felt her stomach curl, her eyes sting, her hands go cold. "So it is yours," she whispered, voice cracking like broken glass. Kirk lunged forward. "Rasheeda, don't!" But she'd already opened the full message. Jasmine's words tore through her chest like a blade. "We need to talk in person." I didn't want to believe it, but the doctor confirmed. "Call me." Rasheeda's breath left her body. She placed the phone down slowly, almost gently, like she was handling the last piece of her marriage. "You did this again," she whispered. You knew it was real, and you didn't tell me." Kirk shook his head frantically, voice shaking. "I didn't know, I swear. She just said she missed her period. She didn't confirm anything until now." But Rasheeda's fury had already ignited, burning through her confusion. "And you kept that from me? After everything we've been through?" Her voice rose, trembling with a decade of hurt bursting to the surface. "You let me sit beside you every night, cook for you, build businesses with you, defend you on TV, sleep next to you, while you were hiding this?" Kirk's eyes filled with tears. He tried to blink away, but Rasheeda wasn't finished. She stepped closer, pointing at the envelope, the phone, the marriage that suddenly felt like a lie. "You told me Jasmine was in the past, dead and gone. You told me I would never have to worry about her again. And now you're telling me she might be pregnant with your baby again?" Kirk swallowed hard. "It wasn't like that. It was one mistake." "One?" Rasheeda snapped. "One? You think this is one?" She stepped back, shaking from the rage she didn't want to feel but couldn't escape. "You created a whole child with her last time. You broke our family. You broke me, Kirk. And I stayed. I stayed when everyone told me to leave. I stayed when fans dragged me. I stayed when my own family said I was stupid. And this is what you do with my forgiveness?" Kirk's voice cracked. "I'm sorry, I swear. Sorry," Rasheeda yelled. "Sorry doesn't fix babies." The restaurant fell silent. Even the staff paused, unsure if they should leave or disappear into the walls. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife deeper, Kirk's phone buzzed again. Rasheeda didn't reach for it. She couldn't. But Kirk did. His face drained of all color as he read it. Rasheeda's voice wavered. "What now?" Kirk's lips trembled. "She said she's outside." Rasheeda froze. Jasmine Washington, pregnant or not, was outside the Frost Bistro at that very moment. The shock hit her chest like a blow. "You told her where we were?" Rasheeda asked, voice low and dangerous. "No," Kirk whispered. "I didn't." Rasheeda frowned. "Then how?" And then the door opened. The bell above it jingled softly, betraying the explosive moment that followed. Jasmine Washington stepped inside with shaky hands, swollen eyes, and a purse clutched so tightly the straps looked ready to snap. She didn't look smug. She didn't look messy. She didn't look like someone trying to break a home. She looked terrified. "Rasheeda," she whispered, "I didn't come to fight." Rasheeda's face went cold. "Why are you here?" Jasmine swallowed hard. Because I didn't want you hearing this from anyone else." Kirk stepped between them instinctively, as if he could shield them both from the truth. "Jasmine, not here." But Jasmine shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "No, it has to be here." Rasheeda clenched her jaw. "Tell me what the doctor said." Jasmine hesitated, too long, and that hesitation was the second twist. "Rasheeda," Jasmine whispered, finally lifting her eyes. "I'm pregnant, but that's not the twist." Rasheeda blinked. "What do you mean?" Jasmine's voice dropped. "I'm pregnant, but I'm not the only one." A chill ran down Rasheeda's spine. "What?" Jasmine took a shaky breath. "The doctor said my hormone levels are unusual, higher than normal. They think—" Rasheeda stepped closer. "They think what?" Jasmine wiped her tears. "They think it might be twins." Kirk nearly collapsed. Rasheeda felt her vision blur again, But Jasmine wasn't done. And that's not even the worst part. Rasheeda stared at her, bracing herself. "There's worse than this?" Jasmine nodded slowly. "Yeah," her voice broke, "because the timeline isn't clear." Kirk froze. Jasmine continued, sobbing now. "They said there's a chance, a small chance. The babies might have different fathers." The room exploded, and Rasheeda realized this wasn't just a betrayal. This was a catastrophe. The next test wouldn't just reveal one truth. It would reveal all of them. The moment Jasmine uttered the words, "The babies might have different fathers," the entire Frost Bistro imploded into a storm of shock, disbelief, and raw, unfiltered chaos that not even production could have scripted. Rasheeda staggered backward as if the floor had been ripped out from under her, one hand clutching her chest, the other gripping the back of a chair just to stay standing. Her world didn't just tilt, it shattered. Kirk stood completely frozen, eyes wide, breathing shallow, face drained to ash. The possibility of Jasmine being pregnant was already enough to tear their marriage open. But twins, and with different fathers? His worst nightmare had just become something so catastrophic it didn't even feel real. Staff members in the restaurant stopped pretending to wipe tables and openly stared, some with hands covering their mouths, others whispering as Rasheeda's tears finally broke free. Jasmine, crying so hard she could barely speak, tried to reach out. "Rasheeda, please, I didn't plan this. I didn't want this." But Rasheeda stepped back, trembling with rage and heartbreak. "Don't touch me. Don't even look at me," she cried, voice cracking through the entire room. "You already ruined my life once, and now you're doing it again?" Jasmine collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. "I didn't know, Rasheeda. I never meant to hurt you." But the cast and bystanders were no longer softening. Carly Red's voice echoed across the restaurant as she burst in through the door. "What's going on in here? Why everybody crying?" And seconds later, her jaw dropped as she took in the scene. Kirk pale as a ghost, Jasmine sobbing, Rasheeda shaking violently, and the entire restaurant holding its breath. Bambi ran in behind her, immediately rushing to Rasheeda's side. "Sis, what happened? Talk to me." But Rasheeda couldn't. She couldn't even form the words. Kirk finally found his voice, weak and breaking. "Rasheeda, please, just listen to me." But she spun around, screaming, "Listen to you? Listen to you?" Her voice echoed so loudly, even people outside stopped and stared through the windows. "You cheated on me twice with the same woman, and now she's back here, pregnant again, and you want me to listen?" Kirk yelled back, voice cracking with panic. "I don't even know if the babies are mine." Jasmine sobbed harder. "I told you I was confused. I told you I needed time." Rasheeda snapped toward her like lightning. "You confused every time you open your legs to my husband." Gasps erupted around the room. Even Jasmine's friend grabbed her hand and whispered, "Girl, maybe we should go." But Jasmine wasn't leaving, not until she was heard. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to be pregnant again? I'm not proud of it. I'm scared. I'm alone." Rasheeda's voice shook violently. "You had a choice," Jasmine finally snapped, screaming back, "So did he." The entire restaurant went silent. There was no coming back from that line. Bambi covered her mouth. Carly stepped back. Even the cameras paused like they felt the weight of Jasmine's truth. Kirk lowered his head, unable to respond, unable to defend himself, unable to hide anymore. And then, in the middle of the chaos, a producer rushed into the restaurant, breathless, holding a clipboard and a phone. Rasheeda, Kirk, Jasmine, we have a situation." Rasheeda wiped her face, already exhausted. What now? The producer hesitated. Someone leaked the story. The blogs have it. Rasheeda's face broke again. No, please no. But the producer nodded grimly. Yes, and they know more than we do. Jasmine cried into her hands. Kirk stumbled back into a chair. Bambi grabbed her own phone, gasping as dozens of notifications exploded across her screen. Carly's phone buzzed nonstop. Spice texted in the group chat asking what the hell was happening. "Read it," Rasheeda whispered, voice barely there. Bambi swallowed and read aloud. Breaking. Jasmine Washington reportedly pregnant again. Sources say Kirk Frost may not be the only father. The room spun. People screamed. Rasheeda leaned on the table for support. But Bambi wasn't done. Another update popped up instantly. "There's more," she whispered. "The blogs say the other possible father is coming forward." Everyone froze. "Who?" Rasheeda demanded. But before Bambi could answer, the restaurant door opened again. A shadow fell across the floor. A man stepped inside. Jasmine's entire body went numb. Kirk's eyes widened in horror. Rasheeda's breath caught, and the man said the words that changed everything. "Jasmine, we need to talk. You didn't tell them about me." The second the mystery man stepped into the Frost Bistro, the entire restaurant went dead silent. Every whisper dropped, every breath paused, every head turned at the exact same time, like the universe itself demanded to witness the next explosion firsthand. Jasmine's body seized with fear, her fingers digging into her chair as if she could stop time by holding on to something. Rasheeda's chest rose sharply, instincts kicking in, eyes narrowing as she tried to place the stranger's face. Kirk froze so completely he looked like he'd been unplugged from reality, his eyes widening in horror as the man took 3 calm, confident steps forward. He wasn't nervous. He wasn't shaken. He walked in like a man ready to expose everything. "Jasmine," he said again, voice low, steady, cutting through the tension like a blade. "You didn't tell them about me." Rasheeda blinked hard. Who are you?" The man looked at her with a sad, almost apologetic expression. "The other possibility." Jasmine's lips parted in a silent scream as her entire world caved in. No, you can't be here," she whispered, shaking her head violently. Tears flooding again. "I told you not to come." But he ignored her completely, eyes locked on Kirk now. "I didn't come here to fight," he said to Kirk. "I came because if these babies have 2 fathers, I deserve to know if one of them is mine." The words hit like a meteor. The room exploded into shocked screams, Carly Red clutching her chest, Bambi's jaw dropping to the floor, producers scrambling to call security and more cameras because the storyline had just mutated into something no cast member, no fan, no viewer was prepared for. Kirk shot to his feet, fury and panic colliding in his expression. "Why are you here? You had no business being involved in this." The man stepped closer with the calm of someone who wasn't intimidated by Kirk Frost's name, reputation, or chaos. "I have every right," he snapped. "She told me I might be the father. She told me the timeline lined up." Jasmine sobbed into her hands. "Stop. Please stop." Rasheeda turned slowly toward Kirk, eyes full of betrayal so deep it didn't even look like anger anymore. It looked like heartbreak wearing armor. "So let me get this straight," she whispered. "You cheated on me, and she cheated on you?" Jasmine screamed. "Rasheeda, no! It wasn't like that. I wasn't cheating. Kirk and I weren't supposed to." But Rasheeda cut her off with a single, devastating sentence. "Then why is he here?" Jasmine couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't answer, because she didn't want it to be true. But it was. The man stepped forward and placed something on the table, a small white box, a DNA kit. "I already did my part," he said, "and I told Jasmine. If she didn't tell you both the truth, I would." Kirk felt the blood drain from his face. "What truth?" The man looked right at Jasmine, voice cracking for the first time. "Tell them, Jazz." Jasmine's shoulders shook violently as she covered her face, whispering, "I can't." "Tell them," the man snapped, slamming his hand on the table. Jasmine screamed, "I slept with him a week after you." The entire restaurant erupted. Shouts, screams, gasps, chairs scraping, phones flying into hands. Kirk staggered backward into the wall. Rasheeda nearly fainted at the table. The man looked around, voice finally soft and painfully honest. "And now, the doctors think one baby might be his, and one might be yours." Jasmine wailed as the truth she feared most shattered the room, but the cliffhanger hadn't arrived yet, because the man wasn't done. He swallowed hard, eyes locking onto Rasheeda like he knew this would destroy her most. "And Rasheeda," he whispered, voice shaking, "Jasmine wasn't the one who reached out to me first." The entire room froze. Jasmine's head snapped up. Kirk's eyes went wide. Rasheeda felt the world tilt. "What do you mean?" she whispered. The man reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and turned the screen around. "I was contacted by someone who wanted the truth to come out." On the screen was a message, a number, a name. Rasheeda's voice cracked as she read it. This is your number, Kirk." The restaurant exploded as Kirk Frost's face collapsed, because he had no memory of sending that message, or so he claimed. And now the biggest question of all echoed across Atlanta. Why would Kirk secretly contact the other man unless he already knew the truth? Cliffhanger. And now, with the Frost Bistro on the edge of collapse, Jasmine shaking under the weight of the truth, Rasheeda staring at Kirk like she's seeing a stranger she's been sleeping beside for 20 years, and the other potential father standing firm with a DNA kit in his hand, the entire world feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for the truth that could split a family, expose a marriage, and rewrite history in a single swab. Kirk Frost's face is pale with fear as he swears he doesn't remember sending that message. Jasmine is praying the twins aren't going to tear two men apart, and Rasheeda is left wondering how many times a woman can rebuild herself before she finally walks away for good. But with two possible fathers, two pregnancy timelines, and two lives hanging in the balance, the next chapter won't just bring answers, it'll bring consequences. So before the DNA test drops, ask yourself, what would you do if your husband secretly reached out to the man who might be the father of your enemy's twins? Would you forgive a betrayal this deep? Or would you pack your bags and leave the Frost Empire behind? And if you were Jasmine, would you finally tell the full truth or keep holding secrets that could explode the second the results hit the table? Comment your theories, drop your predictions, and let us know who you think the real father or fathers might be. Hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and brace yourself. Because in the next chapter, nobody is safe. No lie stays buried, and the DNA results might destroy everything Kirk thought he could control. The real drama begins next.